All right. Once again, welcome to Rich Math Academy's SAT math prep exercises. So today we're going to go through sample questions from past SAT and see how it gets us prepared for upcoming SAT exams. So question 1. In air, the speed of sound, s, in meters per second, is a linear function of the air temperature T in degrees Celsius and is given by S of T equals 0.6 T plus 331.4. Which of the following statements is the best interpretation of the number 331.4 in this context? So when you're given such a statement, you look at it. Here we see that the value of S depends on the value of T, right? So when you look at it, you notice that if T is equal to 0, right? So we have here T equals 0.6 T plus 331.4, right? So what we're saying is if T is equal to 0, then what happens? So we have 0.6 times 0, which is the value of T, plus 331.4. So S of 0 is equal to 331.4, right? So this would be the value of the speed of sound in meters per second when the temperature is what? Equal to 0 degrees Celsius, right? So the constant, that's normally the starting point. And you get that by substituting the dependent variable with the 0, as in this equation. All right, so let's go through the answers. A says the speed of sound in meters per second at 0 degrees Celsius, which is exactly what we have here. So this is the speed of sound at 0 degrees Celsius, right? And normally the unit of S here, as you see it, will be the same unit that the constant will have, right? So the constant will also have to be expressed in meters per second, right? Okay, so our answer is A. And they can ask, the question, using a different context. For example, they can ask you what is 0.6, right? And then you look at it, 0.6 is the rate, right? The rate of change, right? In this case, it's going to be meters per second per degrees Celsius, or per 1 degree change. For every 1 degree change, this is how much we're getting, right? So that's what you have. Okay, let's go to question number 2. In question number 2, we are given a table for a linear graph in the XY plane. So it looks like this: f of x equals the slope times x plus a constant b, right? This is the general equation of the line, right? Or this is the same as y is equal to mx plus b, right? So the first thing you normally do is you find the slope of this line. How do we find the slope? Slope is what? The change in y between any 2 points and the change in x between the same set of points, right? So you can choose any pair of points, and by points, I'm talking about the x and y points, right? Because each one of these represents a point on the straight line. So changing y, in our case, if we choose these two, I'm going to subtract the first one from the second. So I have 13 minus 5 divided by 3 minus 1. So we have the top one is 8, the bottom one is 2. So the slope is going to be 4, right? So if we are to write the equation, it's going to be f of x equals the slope 4 multiplied by x plus b. And then we take a quick look at the answers. If you look at the answers, only one of the answers, comes close to where we are right now, and it's going to be C, right? So in this case, you don't even have to continue because all the others are already eliminated, right? Only the answer C has the slope of 4. So we can move on. And also, when you're finding the slope, always move in the same direction, right? In this particular case is a simple table, but if they are giving us, points, right? If they are just listed as points, right? Be careful not to try and make it convenient for yourself. And what that means is you have to move in the same direction. Let's say you're given A, right? Minus 2, 3, and then B is giving us 1 and minus 4, right? Because of the negative signs, some students try to make it convenient, right? They move one direction, and then when they're doing the x value, they move the opposite direction, right? Always move the same direction. If you move the same direction, the slope is going to be the same. So for example, in this case, we have, depends on which one you want to subtract from which, right? So let's say I'm subtracting A from B, right? So I would say minus 4, which is the y value, minus 3, which is the one for A, and then 1 minus 2, right? So the top one will be minus 7, the bottom one will be what? 1 minus 2 is what? 1 plus 3, right? If you do it this way, the same direction, you're not going to get anything mixed up, right? So always be careful. One direction only, right? So for example, you don't do this subtraction and then suddenly you see, okay, I see minus 2 here, so I want to do it the same way, so they look the same. If you do that, you're going to get, a different result. All right, let's move on to the next question. So we have a number of 3D movies released by year, right? Plotted against the years, right? It says, according to the line graph above, between which two consecutive years were there the greatest change in the number of 3D movies released? So when you look at this, you're looking at where there's the biggest jump within the year, right? And straight away we can see that between these 2 points, right, which maps to this range, is where there's the biggest jump. It means more 3D movies were released between 2010 and 2011, right? So in a question like this, it's just by examining, you look at it and you pick the right answer. So in this case, D is our answer. Now we'll go to the next. It says a downtown business association in a certain city plans to increase its membership by a total of N businesses per year, right? N businesses per year. there were B businesses in the DBA at the beginning of this year, right? So it started with B, and then it increased every year at the rate of N, right? And then we want to find what the value of Y in X years, right? So it's going to look like this. So for X number of years, what will be the increase, right? So Y is depending on what? X. So this is basically the equation they want us to note. And if you look, A is the only one that matches what we have. Here they have it arranged. And remember, addition is commutative. So under normal circumstances, this is how you would write it. You start with the beginning value and then continue, right? This is also correct because this is sort of a linear equation, which is, the way we would normally write it. All right. Okay. Next question. Here we are given two inequalities, right? Which satisfy, a point, right? It means whatever points lie within this inequality and make both of them true is what we're looking for. For a question like this, you can plot it, but I think it's easier to, to substitute than to plot in this particular case, because the plotting can sometimes, confuse some students, right? So here I'm going to try and substitute. In substituting, I would like to select one of the equations, right, which is easiest to deal with. So I'm going to select this. But remember, at the end of the day, whatever satisfies this is also expected to satisfy this, right, at the same time, right? So let's start with this. So the first one is minus x. Minus 2. And then we have minus 1. Because the given y here is minus 1, right? And then the first minus here is the operator, right? And they're saying this is greater than 1. Is this true? Let's see. So it's minus 1, minus, so it's going to be minus 1 greater than 1. Is this true? No. So this is not true. We'll go to the next. Next one is minus 1, which is this x, and then minus 3, right? Which is this y. Is greater than 1. Is this true? We can see right away it's not true, right? Because the left one will be minus 4. This is also not true. We move on to the next one. We have a 1, which is this one, minus 5, greater than 1. Is this true? That's absolutely not. Because on the left side, we got minus 4. On the right side, we still have our 1. So it looks like this is the only answer which is true. Now let's go ahead and substitute and see. So in place of x, we put 2. We put our operator, and then the y value is minus 1, greater than 1. 2 minus 1 is what? 2 plus 1, which is 3. And 3 is truly greater than 1. So this is correct, right? So this is, very simple. You choose the question, you choose the equation which is easier to deal with, right? Let's say along the way, any of these points satisfy this, then we have to test with the other one, because it has to satisfy both at the same time, right? But at this point, we only have one. you can go ahead and verify, but I think it will be, unnecessary use of time since the others have already been eliminated. And then we come to this question number 6. Question number 6 says, we have this equation for a line in the XY plane, and it says that is perpendicular to another graph, which is one of these, right? So we're trying to figure out which one of these is actually perpendicular to that, right? This equation has been written in the standard form, so it looks like this. Right? Now, to find the slope of this, right? The idea of the perpendicular line is that its slope is going to be the negative reciprocal of the original one, right? So, for example, if we have a number like, let's say 2, the negative reciprocal of 2 is what? Going to be minus 1/2, right? Reciprocal means, flip it. And, 2 is the same as 2 over 1. If you flip it, it becomes 1 over 2. For example, if I have, let's say, 1/3, right? The reciprocal of 1/3 is what? It's going to be 3. And the negative of that 1/3 is going to be, the negative of that 3 is going to be minus 3, right? So that's the idea of reciprocal or negative reciprocal. So here we need to find what the slope of this is, right? Once we know the slope of this, the slope of the line that is perpendicular is going to be negative reciprocal of this given line, right? Like I said, looking at this, the slope of the original line is going to be what? It's going to be 2 over 3, right? If you rearrange this and try to make y the subject, you have to divide by 3, right? And then you bring all variables to one side, the x variables to one side. It's going to look like this. Y is equal to 2 over 3 x plus 6, basically, right? That's if you rearrange this, right? So we want a line with a slope which is the negative reciprocal of this. So if we say that line is, let's say, g of x, right? The slope of g of x, let me write m of g, is equal to minus 3 over 2, right? And then we look in this. Which one of these will have this slope, right? You notice how the positions of the numbers change when we switch to the reciprocal. So the same thing will happen in the equation, right? So the first one here is what will be our answer, because the original one had a negative which made the slope positive. So the reciprocal will eventually regain when the negative crosses out, right? So this one is going to look like this. 3x over 2 plus 3x over 2 plus y equals 6 over 2. Here I made a little mistake here, but it doesn't matter. All right? We're supposed to divide the whole thing by 3. So in this case, we have y is going to be equal to, if you bring everything over, going to be minus 3x over 2. And then this one is already here, plus 3. right? So this is what we got, right? But you don't have to do all this. All you have to do is look at the equation itself and then look at the coefficients. The coefficients are going to switch around, plus you apply a negative, right, to one of them to, cancel out the negative reciprocal, right? All right. Next question. So this is a probability question. Probability questions are normally given in the form of a table, and then they give you the condition that meet the possibilities. So it says we have in a survey 607 general surgeons and orthopedic surgeons indicated their major professional activity, right? So we have two categories of surgeons combined. The results are summarized in the table above. If one of the surgeons is selected at random, which of the following is the closest to the probability that the selected surgeon is an orthopedic surgeon whose indicated professional activity is research? Okay, so we're looking for a selected surgeon, right? So the selected surgeon will come from this total, right? This is the total number of outcomes. And it says this surgeon is an orthopedic surgeon. So we are here. And he has indicated, or she has indicated, her activity as being in research. We are here. So where these two meet is where we'll have our condition being met. So we have 74 orthopedic surgeons who are also in research, right? So, from here we use our probability rule. So meaning the number of possible outcomes and then over the total number of possible outcomes, right? So we have 74 over 607. And this works out to be 0.1219, right? So approximately it's like this, right? So you can use this table to study more about probability and the way they ask the questions. You can ask yourself questions, right, from this, right? You can circle any of the numbers and then relate it to how the question will be phrased, right? So for example, if I select this one here, okay, what, context can I bring out? So I can say that, a surgeon is selected. The surgeon is he's a general surgeon who's also in the teaching profession, right? So that would be this one. That's where they meet, right? So it all depends on what they want you to relate it to. It's not all the time they will relate it directly to the total, right? That's why you see total here and total here. So you have to be careful how you deal with this, right? So if they ask you, okay, a surgeon is selected at random, what's the probability that they are in research, right? So a surgeon is in research, meaning that they are in general or orthopedic. And we have a total of them here, right? And then you can relate it to this one, right? You can also say, what if an orthopedic surgeon is selected, right? From the lot of orthopedic surgeons. What is the probability that they are in research, right? So in this case, you are dealing with only this row and then this column, right? So it's going to be 74 over 193 because they said orthopedic surgeon. There are only 193 of them, right? You select one of them, the probability that they are in research is 74 out of 193. So just, play around with it, look at it. Don't just jump over it and, keep going. Once you solve more of these, then, you will get the flow. Let's go to the next question. Okay, we are given this question. It says A is negative, B is positive. Which of the following must be true? So let's try and rewrite this in a different way. We know A is a common denominator from our basic knowledge of fraction. So let's break it up. A over A minus B over A is equal to C. I haven't changed anything. I just rewrote this so I can see the relationship better. Now from here, A divided by A is what? 1. And then we have B over A equals C. All right? So if we have this, we can use the condition. It says A is negative and B is positive. And remember, if A is negative, it's going to cross this out. It's going to cross out the negative here and make this whole thing become positive, right? Which means that if this condition is met, we're going to have a positive value greater than 1, right? When you combine these, right? It's going to be a number greater than 1, no matter how small these numbers are. Because it's a plus, we're adding on to the number 1. So in effect, C is going to be what? Greater than 1, which is the very first answer, right? C is going to always be greater than 1. It's not going to be equal to 1 unless B is equal to 0. If B is equal to 0, then C is equal to 1. But here, we are not told that B is equal to 0. So that will be our answer. Go to the next. This next one is similar, right? We're given this equation, and they want us to find which one of these is true, right? So I would work this question the same way. I have B, right? You take a quick look at the answers. They didn't, state that they want only B or A expressed as the answer. They want A over B or, a combination. So let's go for the simplest one. So I'm going to rewrite this as A over B minus B over B equals 3 over 7. With this, I haven't really changed much, right? Everything I've written is the same, right? This is a common denominator, so I'm allowed to write A minus B over B, right? From here, I can continue and say A over B minus B divided by B is what? It's 1. Remember, here we don't say they cancel out, right? We don't say they cancel out. They are dividing each other, right? You may use the term cross out, but the reason I'm emphasizing this is I've seen students, when they see this, they say, oh, this vanishes or it becomes 0. No, right? This is 1. And this is equal to 3 over 7. If we continue to work this out, A over B is equal to, if you add 1 to both sides of the equation, this 1 here cancels out the addition, right? So it becomes 0. So we have 3 over 7, which already existed, plus the 1, which we've added. This becomes 1/37. And if we convert to improper fraction, it becomes 10/7. So this will be our answer. Right? Let's go to the last question. This is the equation of a circle. Yeah, so in this, what we do is we first write down the general equation of a circle in the xy plane, and it looks like this: x minus h all squared plus y minus k all squared is equal to r squared, right? Where h comma k is the center of the circle. Remember, we're talking about the circle in the xy plane. So in the xy plane, every point has coordinates, right? And r is the radius. And remember, in the equation, it says radius squared, right? Some students forget that, right? So here, what we do is we try to use completing the squares to rewrite this so that it looks like this, right? It looks like the Pythagoras equation that we've been given. So let me write this whole thing out. It's equal to minus 20, right? So we pick the x pairs or x items, right? So I write this as x. The coefficient of x here, I divide by 2, so I get what? 10. And then I square this, right? So I'm still working on the x items or components. If I do this and I try to expand, I'm going to get, let me write it here, x squared plus 20x plus 100, right? That is what comes up to. But that's not what we've been given, meaning that I have introduced this value here, which is not part of the equation. So what do I do to neutralize it? As soon as I write this out, I will subtract 100. So that when I expand this, the minus 100 will take care of what is within here. With this idea, I do the same thing for the second one. I divide the coefficient of y by 2, and then rewrite the pair as this. If I expand this, it will introduce a 64, right? A positive 64. So I need to subtract 64 to make this, complete, right? So what you have here has been represented this way, right? This is minus 20. And now you can rearrange this so that all items with variables stay on one side and the ones without stay on the other side. So I'm going to have x plus 10 squared plus y plus 8 squared is equal to minus 20 plus 100. The plus 100 is due to this, right? We add 100 here to cancel this out. And then we add 64 here to cancel this out. So it has to show up on the right side. Once you are here, you don't even have to keep working because we just want the center of the circle, right? So what you do is you compare what you have here with the general equation, right? So in the general equation, we're given minus h, right? And we are told that h is the x coordinate, and then k is the y coordinate. So it means that this here, if you want to keep working, you can actually write it as minus 10 all squared, right? So that it's clear that this minus 10 is the h, right? And then we do the same thing here. Y minus 8, which is equal to all this, right? I'm only writing this so that we can see what is going on. But with practice, you always know that whatever numbers you get, you apply negative to them to get your final answer, right? So this is the k value. So in effect, this is the center of the circle, right? This is the center of the circle. H is equal to minus 10, k is equal to minus 8. All right. So this brings us to the end of our 10-question run.